Alright. Yeah, let's go. What the fuck is it? Let's see, where the fuck is it? Let's see. Okay. Right. Before I get into, let's see here. Right. And my friend, he has it on. Alright, so I was watching a little bit of the Enforcer. They could be smart at some stuff, but one thing I don't know that pisses me off from the Enforcer is that they're so fucking stupid and retarded about UFOs and stuff, ETs, and the thing is, they always see it as a diversion. And I see some of that. The thing is that ETs, UFOs have been a part of our history. Ever since we've been here, they've been here. As long as we have, they've had a part in making us and creating in some of our ancient culture. They are seen in artwork from hundreds of years ago or less. They are seen in caves and artwork. A tribal nation is said to have left the earth with them, and there's a lot of depictions of ETs in caves and on, drawings and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just get. I don't know. I called. I said, I said with some of these people what they're saying about aliens not being real, they've never been here. I call them retards. I call the retards, rightfully so. I get so pissed off because the thing is, people used to always call me retarded. They call me stupid. They said, I was, had demons in me and stuff like this. And these idiots don't even look at the fucking whistleblowers that have come out. Me, I don't care about whistleblowers. They have nothing that shapes my, my opinion. What whistleblowers say has, nothing on my opinion, not opinion, but what I know about, UFOs and ETs and everything. So, I see stupid YouTube still doesn't even have me on there. I need to do more media. I do most of my stuff off of YouTube for a reason. Because it's piss tube pretty much. I hate him. So they don't like me, I don't like them. Because of past stuff with them. Anyways, it's just these fucking idiots. Talk about, is there truth is out there? It's like, no shit, you idiot. It's like I've recorded UFOs, live stream stuff like that as well. And, I see UFOs almost all the time when I'm out and everything. Been seeing these, since I was a little kid and everything. So, it's just, when I've had people so retarded, so fucking stupid, that they say these UFOs are not probably even real. And let me I want to actually see some of this because let's see here.
Distribution from Fairbanks, Alaska. And now, how much is gas in Alaska, by the way? Since it's way up there off on its own, I wonder how much gas is in Alaska on average.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can go get that. It is, on average, $5.27 in Alaska. So pretty expensive.
For normal unleaded?
It's worse in California, but...
It's like, they wouldn't even have a show to be on to bitch about, like us reading off Super Chats, if we didn't have Super Chats to keep the show running. So I don't really even get what those people complain about. Because I still hold...
I don't know where it is.
They'll never get outside. They're painting bears like demons.
They ain't touching grass.
they ain't never touched...
I don't know, but anyways. I did get on to go with some other stuff here. It's just, I can't believe how stupid, while they can be smart with some stuff and everything with certain things. I mean, one thing that I don't like is how the enforcer talks, shit about. And this is a stupid American thing and Western type thing, how people judge other countries like Russia or Iran. How the enforcer calls Russians stupid and bad and stuff like that, and they don't. Thing is, hate the government, hate the dictatorship of the Russians, but don't talk shit about their people. They're good people. The Russians. Same with Chinese. Same with the Iranians and stuff like that. And I wish people stop being retards and stuff and idiots and get that right, because it pisses me off and they don't listen when I try to correct them. So it pisses off even more when I want to punch their fucking faces in over and over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? I feel like breaking a wall right now. And I already broke one wall. So, anyways. Damn. I have no metal I can hit. I can take Oh, that no, that one do I do damage to that. God, it pisses me off. These idiots that shouldn't even be talking about certain subjects and everything. It's like, you guys can hate the government, but you guys need to get stuff right with the people of these countries and stuff like that. And UFOs as well. Because I'm going to attack you, I'd attack anybody because of how I've been attacked and how these other people attack people. They talk shit about me. I'm going to go after them. I don't give a fuck, you know, feel it like that, get the fuck out. I'm sick of people, you know, and psychiatrists, how they used to put people like me in mental institutions or whatever, and how, you know, they'd say it's all in our heads and everything, and we were the ones that were always right. We were always right about UFOs. We were always right about ETs and stuff like that. And these stupid religions and how they say, oh, it's demons, angels, and all sort of stuff, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Pisses me off, you know, and everything. And I mean, geez, some people need a fucking beating or something. I don't think that'll do anything though, so it probably wouldn't help. Just hate more. But Jesus Christ, I mean, my people have gone through a lot of shit. Me and my people that have had UFO experiences and everything, and you think that I'm gonna let you talk shit, you know, about, you know, UFOs and ETs and all sort of stuff. And they're talking about astronauts seeing UFOs, stuff like that. And they said, well, it probably was nothing. It probably was just, he goes, oh, it's all diversion. I swear I feel like beating the shit out of some people say that's all diversion. Because, yes, obviously some of it is. And some of it isn't. The thing is, this stuff is real, and it should be taught. This is how it could further humanity, even though I don't like to have anything to do with humans that much anymore. I don't give a shit about, oh man. I just don't have much to do with people. I don't want to have anything to do with them that much anymore. I just don't. Jeez. It's like it's the fucking human race of all places. I have to stop that and stuff, everything. But let's see. How to edit this here. I know what's up with stupid Streamlabs. These retards that make this Streamlabs, they don't listen to people half the time. So if there's something that goes wrong, oh man, yeah. I just got a big problem with people. Because my people have gone through a lot of shit. My people have gone through a lot of shit from, you know, scientists, astrophysicists, saying, you know, UFOs can't be real, ETs can't be real. And how even psychiatrists, you know, how they want to put me and others like me in a mental institution. It's like, when you see stuff that we have seen, and if whenever I go out, a lot of times there are UFOs out there. And I think, you know, I remember even the enforcer saying, you know, I lied, you know, about my dad working at secret installations. Of course, when somebody lies about me or whatever, I'd be pissed off. I'd be very fucking pissed off. Because I get where people can be pissed off at me about certain things, and people can say, oh, this Tato, he could be a real bitch and real asshole. That's the truth. I can be sometimes. You know, when I get angry or whatever, and I can understand people calling me that. Because I'm just so pissed off. Because I've always known about this stuff. And if it wasn't for my dad working at secret installations and other people, say, telling you psychiatrists, you know, when I was in a mental place because I tried suicide, unfortunately it didn't work. But anyways, the thing is that they said you can't put him away because he may be right. And he said, oh, really? Care to explain? My father, I said this over and over. He said, I cannot talk about it because it's classified. The stuff that I've been on, stuff that I work on, it's classified. I can't talk about that. It's 25 years to life imprisonment, you know, and each little thing you talk about. This is why a lot of people can't talk about the stuff that have been around this stuff. It's because it's 25 years at least to life. And so I was told to shut up about UFOs and everything. And there was only a few people that I dared to talk to about it, and even other people that had their fathers working in the Air Force. One I knew had a colonel. He was a major colonel in the Air Force. He knew, he knew about UFOs. And so, I mean, there's very few people, because also few people, are going to divulge stuff about being around these classified programs as well. They don't want somebody mouthing off, say he said this, they go to prison or whatever. So, I don't know. People have a right to say that I'm an asshole. I get it. It's just it pisses me off. Because I'm so angry and pissed off about how stupid people still are about UFOs. And, all this stuff is out about it. And I could see for one of my girlfriends from the adult industry, she'd say, I shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't be this pissed. But damn it, you have gone through what I've gone through. You have gone through what me and my people have been through with UFOs. And you don't know the people that have been killed. Okay? Dozens upon dozens, I don't know. Lots of people through the decades have been murdered to keep this stuff secret. And it's still happening today. So when we talk about it, it's a lot more personal. I've been through a lot more shit than others.
Testified that the U.S. intelligence covered up information that pointed to a lab leak. That's right. It wasn't bat soup that caused the whole world to lock down. It was the government and a reckless and experimental lab in Wuhan, China. So why would our own intelligence community cover up for China at the expense of American lives? Earlier today, I spoke with Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna to see what she had to say. But first, she came to us with some pretty shocking breaking news. It's about files pertaining to the assassination of JFK and MK Ultra, which was the CIA's human experimentation program. We have learned since our interview with Luna, the CIA marched into the National Reconnaissance Office warehouse in the middle of the night and took...
I think one other thing is that the reason why it's important for people to know about UFOs and ETs, because for us to evolve, we got psychic abilities, telepathy, the government doesn't want us to have these abilities. They want us controlled. And a lot of the criminal stuff that the government's been doing, they'd have to pay at least life in prison or treason. And I believe that with a lot of these people, they deserve the death penalty for what they've done. They're keeping this stuff a secret. That justice must be done. And how they're using people to bring down UFOs, bring down these NHI as well.
Files under the jurisdiction of DNI Tulsi Gabbard. It was not a raid, and it did not happen today, but it did happen, and the files were not given back. Take a listen to my interview with Congresswoman Luna when we first heard the news. Before we get to the CIA whistleblower about the COVID-19 pandemic and Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in the cover-up, you also have some news coming out of the CIA that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so we were actually just notified that the CIA went in and took documents out of ODNI, multiple boxes pertaining to the JFK files as well as MK Ultra. The reason why this is troubling is A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files, the CIA famously has said that, you know, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed, and so very troubling. I did just talk to Chairman Comer, and we are sending in the next hour or so a preservation of documents request to the CIA. I have calls into the White House to the director of the CIA himself, and so obviously as this develops we'll keep everyone up to date, but strange times we're living in, that's for sure.
Does the CIA have jurisdiction to go into Gabbard's office like that and take documentation?
They don't have jurisdiction over that.
Well, the CIA does not have jurisdiction to work against an executive order by the president. And so the fact that someone did this when the president is out of country, from what I gather, I believe that Director Radcliffe is with him.
Let's put this to what really is treason. And they should be given a death penalty for this. Nobody has been arrested. I don't know, if I was the president, I would direct the military to take down the CIA. And I'd say, you guys are going down. And I'd put live rounds in those guns that are pointed at you. And you're going to do as I tell you or you're dead. No more are you guys getting away from this criminal, doing these criminal acts. Because I know from MK Ultra, I know from the stuff that we've done with the CIA, going back to Lee Harvey Oswald, we had brainwashing experiments and how people could flip a switch in your head and you're somebody else. I do not think that Lee Harvey Oswald was himself, nor the two others that were supposedly involved in this. I do not believe that he was himself. I don't know about the others that also took part in his assassination. I do know for a fact, and this is the reason why the CIA did this, is because they're going to be caught being involved with JFK's assassination. And they do not want their names out there, even though they're probably just about all dead by now. I mean, this is something even the mafia has talked about, where they knew the government was involved with this. And also, this had to do with mind control programs that the CIA has been doing. And I don't think this is a threat to every president. Every president. This is a threat to every party. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, or the CIA can come in, and if you're a threat to them or to the intelligence community, they will kill you. This shows that they are more powerful than the President of the United States. They are a threat to the President of the United States. They are a threat to Congress. They're a threat to the whistleblowers. They're afraid to come out because there's all this criminal activity out there. I know there's a lot of people are going to say that I'm full of BS, but I'm going to come out right, like I always have been with this. It's not just me that's talking about this. There's a lot of other people that have talked about this as well. Human trafficking and other things going on. They just don't want the people. I mean, there's so much criminal activity going on here.
And so this seems like it was an internal coup, to be honest.
Okay,
yes.
Well, we will certainly be watching that. Thank you for sharing. Also today, we saw testimony from a CIA whistleblower. Let's listen to what he had to say and get your response.
Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration.
So, Congresswoman, I'm grateful for the transparency. It's very difficult to come out as a whistleblower because you face consequences, retaliation, which we'll get to in just a second. But we've known for many years that Dr. Fauci...
This is the thing, is that Congress is supposed to be answerable to the people. That means they're supposed to be telling us what's real and what isn't. They're supposed to be accountable to people. This country is supposed to be run by the people. And it's supposed to be run by who we elect. And our trust goes in them to tell us the truth about stuff, you know, whether it has to do with COVID, whether it has to do with UFOs, whether it has to do with mind control programs, extraterrestrials, or other things. There's certain things I can see that have to do with national security. This isn't one of them. What they're doing is trying to hide their criminal activity. And this is where the people have the right to know the truth with these things. And the intelligence community and these contractors that are involved with covering stuff up in Wuhan and stuff like that, they do not want to be answerable to the people. They see themselves as gods. They're pretty much psychopaths and everything, how they do things, and that's how they see themselves, and we're just the bottom of the barrel, the spit of the barrel.
He indeed covered up the pandemic for obvious reasons. He was funding gain-of-function research illegally at the Wuhan lab. It got out of control. They Frankensteined a virus and ended up killing millions of people and shutting down the world and damaging future generations in terms of education. The consequences are very far-reaching.
Well, this is a crazy thing how people from the U.S., these sick psychopaths like Fauci and others, and they let it out. They let it out. This wasn't an accident. This is about people that want to make billions of dollars, and how Big Pharma wanted to make billions of dollars. And they also, a lot of these people also believe in a world agenda to depopulate the planet as well. Like if you look at the World Economic Forum, and to how they view the world, how it needs to be depopulated, etc., and everything. This was no accident. But it's crazy how we work together with the Chinese, isn't it? There's something off with that.
There's no new news on the front that Fauci covered this up, but he can't really face that many consequences because Joe Biden gave him a pardon.
This is the thing. He did give him a pardon, but technically, for what? What crimes? Because if you're giving somebody a pardon, you have to be known in advance what for. I forgot exactly. Hopefully, maybe somebody can educate me. But did Biden say of all crimes, misdemeanors, stuff like that? I don't remember. I remember Biden saying they are part of just about everything or whatever. But if you're doing a pardon, usually you have to be technical about it. So they could see a loophole about that.
I think what Dr. Fauci did was on the level of human rights abuses and violations, and there is still a question on whether or not Joe Biden physically signed that pardon. We know that on our investigations on House oversight, many of the pardons are exact or identical matches with.
Honestly, as much as I hate Joe Biden, and I'm not a fan of Trump either, but I think that he probably is the one that did that. I think Biden is. I know they want to say that. Why? So they can get Fauci. A lot of us want Fauci to hang for what he did. And stuff. I can't believe some people call him a hero when there's all this evidence that he helped leak this stuff out. You know, along with other people from other countries, and Big Pharma saw this as a big opportunity to make money as well. So
signatures, meaning that it's not possible unless it's done by something called AutoPen. I think that that's something that Todd Blanche needs to bring charges on. He is the acting attorney general now, and that's something that he can do. Or at least look at these pardons as null and void if they were not exactly signed by the president. To my knowledge, one of the few that are legitimate are the ones on Hunter Biden, but the other ones are called to question as whether or not they were actually authorized by the president himself. And so I think as we move forward and as this continues to come out, the American people know what happened, even people that not necessarily are conservative or Republican, see what happened with COVID-19, and it's a lesson that we can all learn from, but there are very real human rights abuses that Dr. Fauci committed, and he should be held accountable. He should be in jail.
And it's a shame that Democrats...
I know what you're thinking. I know some of you are thinking out there. What about Epstein? I know. I see too many powerful people to get away with murder on that. I do see that. That's wrong as well. That's all I can say. Obviously if a lot of us had the power, we'd put those guys in prison or worse. But I know people keep on saying about stuff, everything's diversion, yeah. To an extent it is. It goes to show, the thing is, we're supposed to be able to look up to congressmen, to people in the CIA, to people in government. We're not supposed to see them as the worst kind of criminals that there is. They're worse than everyday criminals, lawfully. Or just as bad as the worst criminals. We put our faith and our trust in government to keep us safe, secure, and to pass laws and things like healthcare, etc. To pass those things because we ourselves are not able to do that. So we vote for a representative. Are they keeping us safe at night? Are they keeping inflation down? Are they saving Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or healthcare? Period. Are they making housing more affordable? Are they making rent more affordable? Both sides ain't doing hardly shit to protect us, and artificial intelligence taking over human jobs. Over 50,000 jobs have been lost to AI just in the entertainment sector alone. A lot of it having to do with video games. That's just video games. What about other people's jobs being receptionists that lost their jobs due to AI? anyways, just
refused to show up to this hearing today to get to the bottom of what exactly happened, to hold people accountable for exactly the reasons you just laid out. But Erdman, who's a whistleblower, spoke today about retaliation within the CIA. This is what he said.
The analysts that supported the 2023 lab leak conclusion took every administrative measure available to them to address their deep concerns regarding the analytic integrity of their finished intelligence. CIA managers retaliated against them.
And we also know that bribes were offered from Fauci to scientists to change their opinions as well. But based on what you told me at the beginning of this conversation with the CIA and this testimony from the whistleblower today, it seems there's a major problem going on inside the agency with politicizing intelligence and making these decisions for political purposes rather than just following the intelligence and the facts where they may lead.
Oh, most certainly. Exactly what you just laid out is also known as the deep state, and there's a flush that needs to occur at the agency. I like Director Radcliffe. He's a great man. He's been doing a great job, but he is one man, and there needs to be massive instrumental changes and shakeups at the agency. I think the deputy director of the CIA needs to be backing Radcliffe up on those changes. But what I will tell you today, and just hearing what I heard about the overt efforts to undermine the president's executive order, specifically pertaining to JFK, or I don't know, Congress's order to release and request the MK Ultra files, all of that should tell you everything you need to know about the agency, and that it still operates, so it seems, out of the purview and jurisdiction of the executive branch, of the congressional branch, and that is unacceptable, of the legislative branch, excuse me, and it's unacceptable. And so, as you saw, Comer is working on that subpoena with me. We will send it in the morning if we don't hear back from the CIA. But either which way, we will find out who went into Tulsi's office and took those files. If this person, and this is not a threat, this is going to happen. If those files are not returned within the next 24 hours, you will be called, your faces will be made public in front of the entire American people. All of Congress will see it, and we will hold you accountable for going against a direct executive order by the president and interfering with a congressional investigation. So return the files, do not destroy documents. You will get a preservation of documents notice for Congress, and any member of the CIA that engages in undermining this investigation will be held criminally accountable. And I'm also waiting for a call back from Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general. We are not playing games with you. Return the documents.
All right. Well, Congressman Anna Polina Luna, great to see you. Thank you for joining us as always. Talk to you soon.
I would threaten the CIA with force. You guys would do this, or I'm sending in troops with live ammo against you guys. But
thanks.
Thank you for watching.
I mean, their threat to every administration there is. They're a threat to Congress as well. It's just gone too far. Way too far. And it shows you who's really in charge. It's not the president with this, and the president's supposed to be charged along with Congress, with acts of Congress to get this out as well. So let's see here. Get here, FBI.
And all to.
I want to get here with this. This is from Nancy Grace. Shout out to her. I haven't watched all this. I've watched some of it, but it's just FBI probes more space scientists, or space scientists dead, more missing. Like Burkett said, was it Tim Burkett? Maybe I have his first name wrong, but he's talking about there's a lot more. I know of a lot of people, like I said, have been murdered to keep UFOs secret.
A NASA nuclear engineer burned beyond recognition.
He left his wallet behind, he left his phone behind, and then he drove his Tesla to the Huntsville airport, and then randomly, for no reason that we can figure out, crashed his Tesla directly into a guardrail, and the body inside of it was unrecognizable.
Tonight, the toll rising to 16 16 space scientists either dead or missing. But what I don't get, straight out to Lauren Conlon joining us, investigative reporter with the Los Angeles LA Magazine, star of Pop Crime TV, co-host. You can find her at Pop Crime TV. Lauren, why did I have to find that buried amongst all sorts of outlandish theories regarding these missing scientists and dead scientists? Is any of that true? Who is Ingrid Lane? And is it true she has disappeared, but her car is found with a boulder attack?
Yes, so as far as we know, Nancy, she is still alive. She is just missing. Ingrid Lane, she was a beautiful musician. She played the violin, but she was also a neuroscientist and a bioengineer affiliated with the Mind Research Network at the University of New Mexico. Now, this place, the Mind Research Network, it had ties to Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. So that...
But that sounds like an MK Ultras type of thing. It sounds like also a remote viewing type of program, psychic program or something. It does. Because I know from some of these groups, I don't know about this one, I could be wrong, but others, you know, like Project Stargate and after, they still have programs that we have spies right now using remote viewing. I'm able to do that sometimes, not even as well as others. I have to be connected to them to see them and stuff like that, and other parts of the world, see what's going on. I could be like a spy satellite in a way, but there's other people that are a lot stronger than I am, and we use that. If spy satellites can't do it, they'll use remote viewers. Psychics are used, etc. So for different reasons. So
is where this very, very striking connection comes in. The way that Ingrid disappeared is so chilling, Nancy. She was actually at a retreat that she was supposed to be on a week-long retreat at a place called the Bodhi Manda Zen Center. And according to reports and friends and family, she was very familiar with this place. She had been going there, I guess, on and off for about 10 years. It was about an hour from where she lived in the Albuquerque area. So she's there for one day. The very next day, she tells people that she's going for a drive. She's got to go back to Albuquerque. She's got to go back to Los Alamos. She wants to hike over there and she'll be back later. Now, this struck a few people as odd because it's like you're going on a Zen retreat, but now you want to drive a bunch of hours, even though you're supposed to be meditating. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. So she's driving along State Route 144 near the San Antonio Mountain and the Valles Caledra National Preserve. She is going up and up and up to the top of this mountain. Now, two people find her because she is having car trouble, and they ask her, do you need some help? And she says, I'm fine. I will fix my car. They said she seemed very determined to get to the top of this mountain. So according to these two people, they walk along and she continues. Now, later, as...
Isn't something how these people are hikers? These people just want to go alone, drive off somewhere by themselves. Get a top somewhere, be alone. It's like a switch. And I know CIA programs where, you can take over a person's mind, different ways. Like if there's a group of people, a group of psychics especially, or whatever, where they'll go and override, flip somebody's, who they are, flip a switch, they turn to somebody else. They're different mind control programs that do different things, including inserting memories, inserting thoughts, etc. They could do that. So this is too familiar to me.
You mentioned her car was found after there was an Apple AirTag that police tracked when she was reported missing. Now, there was a large boulder that had shattered near the rear hatch window of her Subaru, and the front showed reportedly major front end collision damage. We don't really have an explanation about that, but 3 laptops found inside that car, Nancy, an unactivated...
I don't see a boulder. I don't see an imprint of a boulder. Maybe right here. If a boulder hit that, I don't know if I think it'd be caved in other areas. That looks like a car crashed into it. That's what it looks like. If there's a boulder that killed her, I'd expect smashing it around, or not so around, but more of an indentation in other areas, or front or back. This just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right to me. It doesn't look like a boulder hit it. It looks like a car did, or she backed into something or whatever. Obviously it looks like there's something, right here, but there isn't right here. If there's a car that hit her or something, I think it would be indentation right here. There isn't. It's just right here. There isn't over here. It's very convenient. A boulder it's like a boulder with a homing device or something. Just went up along the car,
burner phone, and her keys were still in the ignition.
Let me understand. How can a boulder hit the front end and the back end?
Well, we don't know that it was a boulder. We don't really have an explanation.
There is no boulder. You see cave-in at least somewhere. We haven't seen the front. But if it hit the front or back, it was that big, the whole thing would be smashed in. A boulder did not hit that thing like that.
Explanation about that, but 3 laptops found inside that car, Nancy, an unactivated burner phone, and her keys were still in the ignition.
Let me understand. How can a boulder hit the front end and the back end?
Well, we don't know that it was a boulder, right? Like, nobody was there.
Right.
There's no cameras. So this is what is being reported, I'm assuming, based on what law enforcement observed. One thing I want to point out that I thought was a little weird is that she went missing in 2023. She wasn't in the name.
It'd be smashed in. I'd like to know who these law enforcement guys were, because it wasn't a boulder. I don't know. I also get a feeling that these are fake law enforcement officers that said that. That's just me, if that's what happened.
Famous database until late 2024. I mean, maybe that's a question that I can't answer. Maybe you can answer, or Brian. Why does that happen? Why did it take so long?
You're stating she was not in what database, Lauren Conlon?
The NamUs database, the government missing persons database.
Guys, Lauren is saying NAMUS. NamUs is the way it's pronounced, and it is a missing person database, and she was only placed in there how long after she went missing?
About, I want to say more than a year. Yeah.
And again, Lauren Conlon, what was her field of study?
She was a bio engineer and a neuroscientist. She was brilliant, Nancy. I mean, her name, I was just looking this up, her name is connected to multiple reports pertaining to the U.S. Department of Energy. And this is from the Sandia National Laboratory Center for Computing Research. So, you can find a lot about where she worked and what she did online. And I went through this deep dive of Ingrid. I just got so involved. And I found an article that she wrote back in 2012, kind of like an op-ed, where she really was already questioning authority at that point. And she was reportedly fighting for LGBTQ rights at her workplace, which wasn't necessarily going over too well. And this is according to friends. So she was struggling a bit at the time of her disappearance.
Straight out to special guest joining us, Frank Milburn. We are talking about yet another.
I don't know. I wonder why that would happen there, because I don't know. Just me, even back then, it's like I don't care about if a person's gay, lesbian, whatever, as long as it doesn't affect their job. Which, in order to have a top secret clearance, the government looks you over, and they can go through your phone calls. They look at your friends. They look at your family. And maybe there's some people that didn't like that. But if she wasn't straight, the thing is, and this is me, I care whether a person can do their job. I don't care about what sexuality they are so much. I want to know if they can do their job. And as long as they don't bring politics, religion, or sexuality to their job, it's not going to be a problem. Now, I know there's some people where they get stupid, but I would fire them for being stupid about how they react to things. But
another scientist missing or dead, in this case, Ingrid Lane. Do you know what let me introduce Frank Milburn, everyone. Frank, as you may know by now, former British intelligence officer, very dear friend of Amy Eskridge, another brilliant scientist, who made it a point to tell Frank repeatedly, if I'm found dead, I did not commit, no matter what anybody tells you. Yet, it's reported that she died of self-inflicted gunshot wound. And I'd like to point out that no official autopsy has ever been released, ever. And we've compiled a list of other scientists found dead with, amazingly, no COD. In fact, one of them is reported dead because he was overweight and must have had a heart attack. That's not cutting it.
I've been overweight.
But Frank Milburn, what I'm hearing about Ingrid Lane is an eerie echo of what is being said about the brilliant scientist, Miss Eskridge. Her father, a brilliant scientist, both of them working in anti-gravity jet.
Seriously, because he's obese, they said he probably had a heart attack and died because he's obese or whatever. There's some foul play in that. That makes no sense whatsoever. Just because a guy's fat, he's dead because he's obese or something? Where's the proof? You have to have proof of this. You can't just say stuff.
Propulsion. That said, they're being smeared. You know, all being said about him found dead. I did not commit, no matter what anybody tells you. Yet, it's reported that she died of self-inflicted gunshot wound. And I'd like to point out that no official autopsy has ever been released, ever. And we've compiled a list of other scientists found dead with, amazingly, no COD. In fact, one of them is reported dead because he was overweight and must have had a heart attack. That's not cutting it. But Frank Milburn, what I'm hearing about Ingrid Lane is an eerie echo of what is being said about the brilliant scientist, Miss Eskridge. Her father, a brilliant scientist, both of them working in anti-gravity jet propulsion. That said, they're being smeared. You know, all of the comments that have been made about Amy. Well, as to Ingrid, she's being described as a Buddhist musician struggling with her health. She's so much more than that. She is a brilliant scientist.
Yeah.
And I see what's happening with these victims. They are being...
I know a lot of smart people, which I'm lucky, and they don't have these mental issues. People that are very smart, usually they don't have mental issues. So when the government says something like that, or whoever says that, oh, they have issues. Well, let me tell you, a lot of smart people, they have their heads to get, well, all right. Now, some people do have some issues sometimes, a little bipolar, some depression stuff. Like if you're talking about physicists, you're talking about astrophysicists. So those people, sometimes they can go high and low sometimes, but there's a little insanity with some of the smartest people. But usually, though, they aren't the suicidal type. They don't have, this suicidal tendencies where, extreme depression, I should say. I haven't known them for that. Have they had some craziness? Yeah. Being highly intelligent, sometimes that happens, definitely. But suicidal, no, that because they're totally into their craft, they're into their jobs, they're very passionate about it. With smart people in their line of work, they're very passionate about it and everything. It's almost like 24/7 thing.
Being discredited, and it's very hard for me to understand how Ingrid Lane can just disappear from a boulder attack on her car. It's just not computing ideal and hard facts. Every case I've ever prosecuted or investigated either rises or falls on the facts, not innuendo and speculation about the victim's private life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fundamental problem with these, victims, and I will call them victims, because they are being discredited in this way. And for example, I've continued my investigations, and Amy made allegations of corporate espionage against 2 different organizations and individuals linked to those, and she was both threatened over that from those sources before her death, harassed, discredited, and also since her death, both she and I, there have been efforts made against from those same sources, to discredit her and to discredit myself for trying to push this investigation. So unfortunately, that's a problem, and where you have very, very brilliant people who have these kinds of very strange and suspicious circumstances around them, and you will have people trying to discredit them, and that is to their discredit themselves, not the victims.
Guys, tonight the toll of missing and or dead space scientists has risen to 16. Now, I want to talk about Ingrid for one moment. This description of her as a Buddhist musician struggling. No, she was also a bioengineer, a neuroscientist with the Mind Research Lab at University of New Mexico.
Together in their head.
Also worked at or with Sandia and other labs. Los Alamos Lab.
Listen, Dorothy, if you're mentally unfit, if you have bad mental problems, they're not going to have anything to do with you. You're not going to get that clearance. They go through your mental health, they comb through that, they go through your doctors, they know who you're seeing all the time. The FBI in particular, and sometimes of course the CIA, is always looking into that. They do these background checks with everybody. So they did with my father, did with other people. So if she was mentally unfit, she would have never been at these places.
Labs, in particular, her husband, an astrophysicist with the Department of Defense. He builds directed energy weapon software for the Air Force at Kirkland AFB.
Air Force.
He has published multiple research papers about Earth-like planets near other stars. But yet, she is being painted as a crackpot. Lauren Conlon, I've been researching.
Eskridge's father was also involved with top secret programs with zero-point energy, anti-gravity. I wonder what happened to these 2 ladies' fathers. Because I'm thinking they could be marked, and that'd be a reason why they hadn't said anything.
Ingrid, as have you, and all of the personal, every description is discrediting her brilliant mind and her advances in science. she's being written off as a crackpot, much like Amy Eskridge. But Amy Eskridge, isn't this true, Frank Milbert, had some of the highest government security clearance that can be had. She was working with Homeland Security and more.
She was also, I mean, I can't comment on her clearances because I didn't discuss those with her, whether she had them, whether she didn't, but she was interested in working on some very, very interesting cases and technologies. She was working with Homeland Security, yes. And just the fact that she had a kind of string of people who worked on high-level government UFO programs who were visiting her home, scientists and others. So she was very much in that field.
You know, Brian Fitzgibbon is joining us, and everyone on the panel that hasn't been introduced yet tonight, please jump in when you have a thought. Brian Fitzgibbons is with us, the Director of Operations, USPA Nationwide Security. He leads a team of investigators around the world finding missing people. He is a former Marine and an Iraqi war vet. Brian, here's another tidbit, a fact that just doesn't fall into place with me regarding Ingrid Lane. She went to a Zen center for a few days. Zen center, get it? Zen, chill. Her mind, brilliant, and this was a break for her, but yet suddenly she announced she had to leave by car in her black Subaru. Then
There's
it's found
no way a boulder hit that
on
There's no
about 11
indentations.
miles north, I believe, New Mexico 1.
Look at this. A boulder did not hit that car. We haven't seen the front, I mean, but whoever said a boulder hit the front and back, that car would be smashed. Solid rock coming down, that smashed a plastic car. I mean, there's that's just ridiculous.
26. Now, here's the thing. She's gone, but her car barely survived a boulder attack? How can she vanish near the mountains? How can that happen? Wouldn't cadaver dogs, drones, someone, something have found her? There's her car. Where is she? She had a burner phone. Why? Why did she suddenly leave her Zen retreat by car? Why? Her husband doesn't know why. Help me out, Fitz, because this isn't fitting together. And now she's being described, this astrophysicist, as a crackpot.
Which means you have a burner phone. I mean, you have that. So, you know, if you think you're being tracked, you could just throw it out. And you have your main phone or whatever. So it's like a throwaway phone.
What triggered that need to leave this retreat center so urgently? And when you add in the totality of the facts surrounding this case, you brought up maybe the most prescient point, Nancy. You and I together have covered so many cases of missing hikers, and a search and rescue effort is very efficient at finding somebody, especially when there are marked trails, known routes, a retreat center nearby. If there was some kind of medical emergency that Ingrid suffered, search and rescue effort would find her relatively quickly. So to add in this burner phone, what appears to be potentially a staging of a secondary crime scene at the vehicle, there are a number of red flags here.
I want to go back to Lauren Conlon. Lauren Conlon, everyone, investigative reporter. You've seen her joining us many, many times on Crime Stories. She is a contributor at LA Magazine and has just written an incredible article about the missing NASA scientist, Monica Reza. And the reason I want to bring that up is not just because of your article, which is amazing, Lauren Conlon, but Monica's disappearance, in my mind, is eerily similar to some of the other disappearances. Tell me what you learned about Monica.
Yes, well, I was just going to say this, Nancy. Between Monica and Ingrid, I'm seeing some similarities that are very chilling. There was a red beanie of Monica's that was found. And after this red beanie was found, and again, just for those that don't know, she went missing in June of 2025 when she was hiking in the Mount Waterman area of the Los Angeles Mountains in California. It's 100,000 or hundreds of thousands of acres, this entire area. But her area, we do know her last known coordinates, which is where law enforcement and family and friends have been searching for the last year. So she left, that red beanie that you saw on that photo, that was found. Now,
right
Monica's scent stopped after that beanie was found. That is very concerning. If she were to keep going on, let's say she got lost, right? Why would her scent stop there? Same with Ingrid. Reportedly, there was forensic evidence indicating that Ingrid had been outside or near her vehicle, but there was no trace showing where she went after. Search dogs reportedly found no scent trail leading away from the scene. That, to me, makes no sense. And I have to wonder, without being a conspiracy theorist, were these staged somehow? And with Monica, I have spoken to close...
Well, this is how conspiracy theories are born, when there's some fact in it a lot of times, all right? And I don't like conspiracy people using those words, because the so-called conspiracy theories that I talk about here are very real. And a lot of them that are on all these social media, it's very real. They're not conspiracy, stuff rooted in fact. And stuff like this is going to create type of theories, that people are saying is conspiratorial, because there's foul play, obviously. Her scent and everything else just disappearing, or anybody else's, doesn't make sense, unless people say, she was eaten alive or whatever. You go with that theory, or then you expect blood to be on that red beanie, or whatever. But when it just disappears like that, it seems like they're just physically taken, just erased. So one reason or another.
Family members who are desperate to find their sister, their mother, their cousin. Monica is a widow. They wanted everyone to know that she was not working for any type of foreign government, any foreign intelligence. She was studying yoga with a specialty in Vedic sciences, and she had done this for about 30 years, and she was working for NASA JPL at the time. One last thing I want to say about Monica, Nancy, is the fact that she had an iPhone 8, which meant that her cell phone was not going to ping anywhere unless she was at a proper place in the mountain for it to work. If she would have had an iPhone 12, it could have pinged. But this is one of the most baffling things ever, again, because she was with two people, two companions, and they both seem to have a very specific story. And as far as I know, Nancy, no one else can put Monica on the mountain that day except for these two people. I have not spoken to them personally. I have reached out to one of them, but I have a lot of questions.
Lauren Conlon, is it true that Monica Jacinta Reza got her funding from AFRL, Air Force Research Lab, and she worked closely with, and her funding was approved by, William Neal McCasland, who walked away from his home with none of his ID, without his phone, without anything on him to identify who he was except an Air Force sweatshirt, which was found discarded about 2 miles away. McCasland oversaw Monica Jacinta Reza's projects and okayed the funding for her. Isn't that true?
They did overlap, and I've reached out to these places like Wright-Patterson, the Air Force Research Lab, and I think I mentioned this to you. It's very difficult to get confirmation of what people did exactly and the years that they worked there, so I'm going off of LinkedIn for these two in general. But yes, Monica Reza, she co-patented these high-strength metal alloys, burn-resistant alloys, and General McCaslin was at the very top. So this, to me, like, they are...
A lot of this smells, though, also where it seems like the government are afraid that they would take what they know, their knowledge of what they know, and try to make a privatized company to make, zero-point energy, anti-gravity, anti-gravitic type of craft, and the government wouldn't have control of that, and they saw them as a threat, and also what they knew, and they just wanted them killed. I don't know if somebody has something better. Let me know.
Are the center of all of this. I really believe they are. And one other thing that's so concerning about Monica Reza, when I spoke to her family last week, no one from the FBI or the White House had reached out to her. And I know that doesn't mean they're not looking into this. I know that maybe family doesn't know exactly what she was working on. I just thought that was very strange in terms of profiling.
She was working on a particular alloy to be used on rockets and other aircraft that was resistant to high degrees of heat. And the name is Mondeloy.
And we do have secret, this is another thing, they could have killed her so they wouldn't have to pay her. That sounds very convenient to me. They don't want to have to pay someone like her millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars or billions. This would come out to a lot of at least tens of millions of dollars, if not more, because of this, tech, or this metal, I should say, not tech, but metal that she had in creating. And I know that we have other classified metals that people don't know about that's stronger than steel, but it's very lightweight, because I've had, at least, a few people tell me about that we have these things. And so obviously she has something. This sounds like the government too much.
She was perfecting the use of Mondeloy on rocket ships and other craft. So as part of her research, suddenly she goes missing. And I want to address what you just said, Lauren Conlon, with Brian Fitzgibbons. Here's an example everybody can understand. And I was shocked when I first heard it. This was during the Scott Peterson murder investigation, where Lacey and Connor were murdered by Scott Peterson. Do you know a scent dog tracked Lacey from Modesto all the way
to
the San Francisco Bay? The dog tracked her that far, and she was in a vehicle, probably in the back of a boat with a tarp over it. Tracked her all the way in a vehicle. So why is it that Ingrid Lane and Monica Jacinto Reza just disappear and leave behind no identifiable scent for either a scent dog or a cadaver dog?
Yeah, that's perplexing. I mean, as you know, and you pointed out with the Peterson case, and there are so many other examples. U.S. Marshals just tracked down a fugitive in Naples just today using scent dogs. This is through thick brush, wetlands. It's amazing what these dogs can do.
What they is that the only way you can usually get away from their scent is if you use another animal's poo and put that over your private areas, and right here and areas that you sweat, unless you got those in those places and other parts, that sweat a lot, and other animals poo or whatever, they're gonna get you, and they still might. So that's the only way people have had a chance of getting away from those dogs.
More time, expenses stacking up fast. For many,
about the beanie, it's the only thing found. The big one comes down to the canines. They took canine teams out there, scent trackers. They tracked the scent to the beanie, and there was no scent trail leading away from the beanie. Right? If she continued in that direction, the dogs would have continued. Yeah. The beanie is at the location where the only witness saw her disappear. The only witness produced the 2 photos. And the beanie is at that location as well. At the investigative angle, at the investigative side, you have to look into this as possible foul play and possible staging of an event.
You are hearing well-known geoprofiler Doug McGregor answering questions for Lauren Conlon at LA Magazine, describing what is a forensic quandary, a conundrum, a Rubik's Cube, so to speak. Because in our world of hard evidence, a scent doesn't just disappear unless that person, maybe, was put in a vehicle and the dog loses the scent.
Right.
But that doesn't make sense as far as Monica Jacinto Reza's disappearance. She was on the side of a mountain. She wasn't picked up in a vehicle. Ingrid Lane was in the middle of rugged terrain. Her car sitting right there, disabled by a boulder attack? No. And a mystery burner phone left in her vehicle? No.
What's on that phone?
Guys, I told you that the toll is now up to 14, and you have been hearing Lauren Conlon, who has been intensely researching the disappearance of Monica Reza as well as Ingrid Lane. But there is another name that has emerged. Kevin Childress. Kevin Childress was found dead unexpectedly, and I'm going to go to Dave Mack shortly about how many of these scientists are dead, but there's no medical examiner's report and there's no official cause of death. How can that be?
Yeah.
Even when my step-grandfather passed away of a heart attack in the home with my grandma there, they did an autopsy to determine what really happened. He was 88 years old. They did an autopsy, and it was a heart attack. Why no autopsies and no official CODs? That's a whole other can of worms. But I want to get back to Kevin Childress. Joining me now is Lou Elizondo, former U.S. Army Counterintelligence Special Agent, former employee, Office Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, former Director, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, and UFO whistleblower. Wow. Mr. Elizondo, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. You have refused in the past to give me the name Kevin Childress, but I found it elsewhere. Kevin Childress, and correct me if I am wrong, was set to have a meeting describing very, very sensitive scientific information. He was going to Congress and talking about what was in the UAP files, and then suddenly he's found dead on a sofa, and there was never an autopsy. What can you tell me about Kevin Childress other than he was brilliant? That much I already know.
Sure. Well, Nancy, thank you very much for having me. It's certainly an honor and privilege. You're absolutely correct. Kevin Childress was a senior special agent with the Department of Energy. And as you continue to look at some of these other cases, there are definitely ties. When you're talking about a national laboratory, there are always ties with the Department of Energy. So in this particular case, Special Agent Kevin Childress was the special agent in charge. He was there at headquarters with the Department of Energy, and he had reached out to me. This is right after I left the Pentagon. And he was very concerned. He said, look, the Department of Energy has a significant role in the UAP business. And I'm pretty upset by what I have access to. And now that I've raised it through my chain of command, I feel that the Department of Energy is trying to keep me quiet. So I'm worried about that. But there is
Yeah, if I was him, I'd have guns on me, knives, nunchucks, any type of weapon. And, oh my God. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of whistleblowers, and there's whistleblowers that have disappeared lately. They're gonna, blow their whistle, and they've come up missing. And you got others that are too scared because of this. So, all this is.
There's a lot of information. This is what he's saying that I have access to, and I would love a chance to talk to somebody in Congress about it. So I was in the process of arranging a meeting between Special Agent Kevin Childress and some members of Congress back in the 2020-2021 timeframe, and to spare the family they want to be cognizant of their privacy. Let's just say his spouse is extremely well trained in the medical field. And I think it was a surprise to everybody. She had left for work that morning. He seemed fine. She came home that evening and he was dead on the sofa. And clearly I had some surprise as well when I heard this news. But if you look at his obituary, which I find very interesting, specifically one of the last paragraphs, it talks about his interest in the UAP topic. And that's actually what was the basis for our conversation we were going to have in Congress. I was going to bring him there as a whistleblower and allow him to speak his piece.
Can we identify that, please? Unidentified aerial phenomena. That's what we're talking about, UAP.
That's correct.
Unidentified.
It sounds very conspiratorial.
Phenomena.
But the reality is that our government has spent a lot of time, a lot of resources looking into the topic of UAP or what was known in the vernacular as UFOs in the past. And of course, people like to snicker and giggle about it, but the reality is we took it very seriously. We spent a lot of money, taxpayer money, looking into this because we had in some cases almost mid-air collisions between a UAP or a UFO, if you want to call it that, and military aircraft. We also saw these things over controlled U.S. airspace, over sensitive military installations, over nuclear facilities. And this is why Department of Energy is so important here, because the nuclear tie it may be actually something that we need to look at. All these scientists that have disappeared
The
in one way,
nuclear tie. Hold on, you know what? Pardon the pun, but you're light speed ahead of us regular people. What do you mean the nuclear tie?
So one of the things that we noticed while in the Pentagon running the UFO program was that these UAP or these UFOs have an interest in our nuclear equities, whether it's nuclear propulsion, nuclear power, nuclear weapon systems. And what a lot of people don't know is that the Department of Energy plays a significant role when anything that is.
I know a few nights ago I was out there and I see that UFOs that happen, I've been seeing where I am, they've gone to another place, and I saw them a few nights ago at their new place, and I actually got tears in my eyes because I'm very lucky that they come around to make themselves known to me, not just like a piece of shit compared to them and stuff like that. And one of the only reasons why I still do this is because I want people to know that these things are real, and some of them are good and some are bad. And it's just, there's a lot of them that just want enlightenment to come to people and everything and stuff. And we're being held back.
Is considered radioactive or has a certain yield, Department of Energy has primacy. And so in this particular case, you have a lot of scientists writ large, not just Kevin Childress, who was the special agent, that were working at these national laboratories under the Department of Energy cognizance. And a lot of the work that they were doing could be related to some sort of Department of Energy project. Now, I want to be very careful here because
morphing from one shape to another, and I know UFOs from ones that I've seen, non-human intelligence stuff, that they can make themselves look like drones, they can make themselves look like a star, they can make themselves look like a planet, and they have all kinds of things they can do. and everything. So
certainly,
it did turn into
I don't want to
TikTok.
talk about anything that's classified.
Like,
but as one of your
Jesus,
participants here mentioned, these individuals had security clearances. In some cases, top secret SCI security clearances, as high as it gets. And that's the reason why you have FBI now involvement in investigating these what we call national level cases. But there are other individuals, and I'm sure our friend here, Frank Milburn, can tell you. Amy Eskridge was no different. I had the opportunity to speak with her in person in 2018 timeframe in the Huntsville, Alabama area, Redstone Missile Arsenal, where she had indicated to me that she was working on an anti-gravitic technology, her and her father, and that that research was being suppressed. And I know this sounds very conspiratorial, but I was there for the meeting. It was actually over dinner. And all I'm telling you is what she told me. And she said that they're being harassed and that she's very, very afraid that there are certain elements that are trying to, quote unquote, shut them down. And yeah, she told me that verbatim. And then, of course, unfortunately, she wound up dying, passing away. General McCaslin, the same thing. A lot of people don't realize Neil McCaslin, who we talked about, AFRL, Air Force Research Laboratory. And,
I really think that our intelligence, I know that our intelligence community is a threat to our democracy, and the defense contractors in this are a threat to our democracy. It has nothing to do with national security. It has to do with covering up a lot of crimes that they've been committing over the last 80 plus years, and everything. They're going to do anything, everything they can to cover it up and to keep people from privatizing this magic / tech and making their own craft for people or talking about it. It's people have no idea how nightmarish and bad this is. You have no idea whatsoever.
Some of these other national laboratories, he was a linchpin to a lot of the military's black projects. Basically, they're working on technologies that, in theory, we won't see for another 50 years. And McCaslin, what a lot of people don't know, is that he was also an advisor to one of my colleagues, Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge is the former frontman and current frontman, I think, again, for the Blink 182 rock band. And as crazy as this sounds, Tom had an interest in the UAP topic, UFO topic, and General McCaslin, Neil McCaslin, I know as a fact because I worked with Tom, was one of his advisors on the UFO topic. And so I want to be very careful here not to sound conspiratorial or draw any lines that aren't there. But a lot of these individuals that are on this list actually had some sort of involvement in either advanced propulsion, advanced types of materials and alloys, or specifically UAP research.
You could bet down well he knew about ETs and bodies and stuff like that. And us working with them and everything else. So.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories and stream it first on Fox 1.
Yes, thank you.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Stream it first on Fox 1. I hope to see you there, and thank you, friend.
Joining me now is Lou Elizondo, former Director, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program and UFO whistleblower. Question to you. What was the cause of Kevin Childress' death?
He supposedly died from COVID complications, but when I spoke to him earlier, he seemed fine, and according to other witnesses, who I won't name here, who saw him that very morning, said he seemed fine.
Did his wife know he had COVID?
I'd let her answer that instead of me. I'm very cautious not to overstep my bounds. I want to be very careful of people's privacy. But I would suspect that she was.
Do you know if an autopsy was ever performed?
I don't know that. I don't know that, but I know when he talked to me, he had told me specifically, like Amy Eskridge, that he was very afraid that there was there were reprisals against him at the Department of Energy, that they tried to squeeze him out. They tried to launch fake investigations and tried to discredit him. And something that I'm personally keenly aware of, because when I left the Pentagon as well, and decided to go public, the same thing happened to me and some of my colleagues who decided to come out and talk about this topic to the American people. So I don't doubt the fact that he was in some way, shape, or form being intimidated, and they were trying to suppress his communications. When I say they, I don't know who they are. I don't know if it was government sponsored or if it was someone else. But I can tell you in my conversations with him, and of course Amy Eskridge, and then later on with Neil McCaslin, all of these individuals had a very keen interest in the UFO topic, and that for me is obviously very concerning.
Died of COVID, yet no one seems to be able to confirm he had COVID, and no COD, cause of death, is listed in the obituary. Kevin Childress, who was concerned that he was being treated as a whistleblower and was set to talk to a member of Congress, then dies on the sofa. No COD. I'm also very curious about Matthew Sullivan, aka Quake. Is it true, or do you know, whether an autopsy was ever performed on Sullivan and what was said to be his cause of death?
Yeah, so rather than share what I don't know, let me share with you what I do know. He was an Air Force intelligence officer. He was a colleague of one of my colleagues at the time, Dave Grush. Dave Grush and I had worked at U.S. Space Force together. And Sullivan wanted to come forward and have a conversation with certain members of Congress about the Air Force's involvement in the UFO program. And he was slated within, I think, 24 hours. He had gone to Washington, D.C. and was in a hotel, from my understanding, and was going to have a conversation with some members of Congress in a SCIF. A SCIF is a sensitive compartmented information facility. So it's kind of like think of a secret vault where you can have conversations at the classified level. And the day before he was supposed to have a conversation, or 2 days before, he wound up being found dead. I knew, what I do know is that there was a while before the medical examiner even released a report. It kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. I don't know the reason why it was delayed, but I do know that members of Congress were very concerned. The fact that this individual was supposed to testify and wound up dead. And by the way, this wasn't the only one. There was another individual whose name I won't mention because it hasn't been made public yet, but he was an individual, an engineer, who was allegedly tied to the exploitation of recovered UFO material. He was talking to one of my colleagues, and he was going to go talk to Congress about his knowledge about legacy UFO, U.S. government legacy UFO efforts. And within, I think, a week or so before he was supposed to go to Washington, D.C., he wound up dying. And the cause of death, I don't know, but one of my colleagues was following it very closely and was concerned enough to tell me, hey, look, people are starting to disappear. You may want to be very careful. So there does seem to be a very interesting...
I would tell anybody that's about to whistleblow not to do it. Otherwise have other people leak stuff out, the truth out, because the old regime, as I say, because I remember back in the 80s, hearing about people from Men in Black, and I'm talking about real Men in Black, and they seem like android, also form not human, very cold, they're albino looking, and how they can also mess with time and space around you. How people were being threatened back then, divulging secrets from, either places like Area 51S4 or other places. And so I'd say just don't there are other ways to get stuff out, I'd say. And if people choose not to believe it, that's on their idiot, selves. But there's those that know that's the truth and everything. But
you can call it a coincidence, but in my line of work as a former intelligence officer, when things happen once, it's an anomaly. When things happen twice, you could chalk it up as a coincidence. But when it happens 3 times, now you have a trend. Now you have a connection there, and there does seem to be some very interesting connection here. Now, I also have to preface, though, as a former intelligence,
I get chills at the goosebumps. But the nurse, the lady that handled some of the alien bodies from Roswell crash, she just happened to die in an airplane crash, and for what people that saw her. They're at Army Air Base there in Roswell, said that she was totally shaken up. She didn't puke, she got sick, and it totally, hit her psyche, soul-shattering experience. They're deadly afraid that she couldn't keep quiet because she'd lost her sanity with that. Couldn't with anybody, of course. You see an alien or non-human intelligence, and some of them are bad, but some are good, but some of these can be bad at times depending. You see that's a scary thing. Your whole sense of reality shattered and everything. And so she was one of the first people to be killed by this, and there's dozens and dozens more with this. I can't even imagine how many people would be killed over this. So,
intelligence officer myself, it is not as uncommon as you might think that foreign countries will sometimes take very extreme measures to keep information quiet. We're now beginning to see that there are several scientists now in China that are missing, and there may be reasons for that, and same with Russia. So we need to do a lot of work on this. But, if I may, Nancy, digress for just one moment, because you had a very interesting picture there of a vehicle that was allegedly hit by a boulder. And this was the scientist, female scientist, who went up and wound up disappearing. Let's take a look at this photo, for example, just for a moment. What I find very interesting as a former special agent myself is that if a boulder hit this, I don't see any real damage to the top of the vehicle.
Listen, you don't have to be a special agent. You don't have to be an intelligence to know. You can be one of the dumbest people and say that something doesn't make sense. If you see a boulder in a rocky area in the mountains, and you try to put 2 and 2 and imagine that's hitting a car, and there's no indentation of a huge boulder hitting that car or something. And he said the back and the front of it. There's no crater on that car. None. Zero.
I see is damage into the back of the window as if someone tried to do some sort of smash and grab, and maybe some minor damage below that on the trunk area. But what I don't see is anything that looks like a large boulder had come raining down from a cliff and smashed the back part of the vehicle there. And now maybe they were able to recover a rock or something, but
now that I see that right here, there is that indentation right here, maybe something right in here, this line, but otherwise that's the light's still intact. It is still.
That really does not look consistent to me as a giant boulder coming down from a hill and smashing the vehicle. One would expect to have much more damage to that vehicle if that was a case.
That is an incredible observation. It's right under our noses, but we didn't see it. That's why you are the former U.S. Army Counterintelligence Special Agent. I want to defend Matthew Sullivan because I feel that he, along with Amy Eskridge, along with Ingrid and others, is being painted in a, let me just say, a bad light. Matthew Sullivan earned a Bronze Star for valor in Operation Enduring Freedom. He worked for the Air Force Intelligence Agency, the National Air and Space Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency. You know, it was stated by Major General David Abba that Sullivan held the, quote, burden a select few in this nation have of truly understanding what is going on in the field of jet propulsion, anti-gravity, UFO information.
Wow.
He had the highest recommendations. Yet, let me understand how Matthew died. Matthew died just before he was set to speak to members of Congress, alone in a hotel room. To you, Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter, what were the circumstances surrounding his death? What did they say he had ingested?
Nancy, they said that this Air Force veteran, Bronze Star recipient, Matthew James Sullivan, at the age of 39, died from a lethal mix of alcohol, alprazolam, cyclobenzaprine. We've got alcohol, Xanax, a muscle relaxer, and a bedwetting that is medication. That's what it is reported.
For children.
Yes, for children, yes. That he overdosed accidentally on those medications.
You know, there was no...
Why do I think that this is like a murder and they gave him this cocktail to make him look bad? And I'm obviously not the only one that thinks this, because she and some other people are. So this isn't just me that's thinking crazy here.
Autopsy there as well. And when I circle back to Kevin Childress, Dave Mack, isn't it true regarding Kevin Childress that no autopsy was performed and his death was chalked off to a heart attack because he was obese mixed with COVID?
Yes, that, believe it or not, that is what was said by the medical examiner without doing an autopsy. Nancy, one thing to go back very quickly on Matthew Sullivan.
No autopsy.
None. Representative Eric Burleson, Nancy, he's a congressman from Missouri who serves on a House Oversight Committee task force that on the declassification of federal secrets. They were so shocked in his office at the death of Matthew Sullivan that Congressman Burleson reached out to the FBI and asked for them to do an investigation due to the timing of Sullivan's death.
Hi guys, American homeowners. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called Crash Retrieval Program. He was part of the U.S. government's Crash Retrieval Program. Lou Elizondo, what is that? The Crash Retrieval Program.
Wow. Well, first of all, Nancy, it's a great question, and it's a question that I'm not allowed to answer. Let me just say this. I still maintain a security clearance with the United States government, and there are certain prohibitions that I have been told, and I've had to literally sign my name on a piece of paper saying that I would not discuss details about certain topics, X, Y, Z. The notion of crash retrievals, unfortunately, is one of them. It is still considered very sensitive in the U.S. government, and unfortunately, I cannot confirm nor deny or elaborate very much at all on that topic. But what I can say is what you're saying was absolutely what was communicated as well to Congress, that Mr. Sullivan here had some sort of affiliation with legacy efforts and potentially reverse engineering.
The UFO crash retrieval operation, dubbed the Legacy Program. That's what we're talking about. And Shepard was into it up to his eyeballs. Before we go to special guest Frank Milburn to tie this all together with the suspicious death of his friend Amy Eskridge, to Dr. Kendall Crowns is joining us. He is the chief medical examiner in Tarrant County, that's Fort Worth. He is an esteemed lecturer at the Burnett School of Medicine at TCU. He's a star of a hit podcast, Mayhem in the Morgue, his lighter side. Dr. Kendall Crowns, how is it someone can be pronounced dead via heart attack? Because they're fat, because they're overweight, they just died of a heart attack with no toxicology, no autopsy, no medical examiner sign off, nothing?
That doesn't
Who said heart attack?
So it depends on the jurisdictions. Some medical examiner offices or coroner's offices will actually sign cases out over the phone with a medical history, known complications like morbid obesity. If they have known to have heart disease, they'll use that to make the decision of calling it atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or a heart attack over the phone. Now, it just depends on the jurisdiction.
Put him up,
like
please.
in Tarrant
Put him up.
County.
This is LA. Are you telling
Yeah,
me
not LA.
this is
Not
like
LA,
Teledoc? They get some information over the phone. They go, okay, yeah, write it off as heart attack.
So yes, in some jurisdictions they will do that, and they will base it on age, medical history, things of that nature. My problem is you have an individual who's too young. I mean, he's under 50, found dead. Just because he's overweight doesn't mean he necessarily had a heart attack. He should be evaluated.
I hadn't heard about that here in LA County. I mean, I don't know her. I certainly don't know her. I'm not going to even. But everybody that I know that has just died, even if they have known sicknesses, they still usually get an autopsy. Now, where I live, they're doing an autopsy to make sure that wasn't drugs also, because there's a lot of drug activity here where I live, which is not good, but I'm just saying. But I'm not saying he's a liar, because I don't think he is. But I hadn't heard that around here. I mean, the only time I could think that happening is if they're inundated with bodies or whatever, and they've had 24 hours they've been in the hospital before, or they've been seeing a doctor in and out so much that, you call the doctor up and say, hey, have they been in and out of the hospital, urgent care, yada yada yada. I sort of not think that this is related, that this would be the case with this case, but unless I hear different.
And looked at to make sure he did have heart disease and did die from that and not something else like an overdose or something nefarious. But he should have been looked at. But again, it's jurisdictional. Some places the cutoff is 45 and they won't even look at him.
To Frank Milburn joining us,
never heard
a
of
very dear friend of scientist Amy Eskridge,
I've never
found
heard that
dead.
here in LA County.
Milburn is a former British intelligence officer. He spoke with Amy just hours before her death. He does not believe she killed herself, and he is very familiar with the technology on which she was working, as well as directed energy weapons reportedly used against her. Frank Milburn, after all you have heard tonight, including the names of 2 additional scientists missing and dead, how do you compare that to Amy's case? What do you think is happening?
Well, it literally makes the hair stand up on my neck, the hair that I do have. Yeah, I think it's very concerning. I mean, any time that you have people who are effectively walking encyclopedias on these kind of technologies, whether it's exotic propulsion, nuclear, and who have worked for government departments on classified programs, then there's a counterintelligence red flag goes up, and these things need to be investigated. In Amy's case, I've continued my own investigations, and in the case of where she was accusing people of corporate espionage, documented and receiving harassment from people who themselves have documented histories of legal problems because of violence against women, and also making violent threats against her and other people. So that's extremely concerning to me, and it's extremely concerning seeing these other scientists. I don't have the FBI bird's eye view. But I'm hoping that they will investigate, all of these cases on their merits, individually, whether there's some kind of overarching conspiracy or not.
I think, and I don't think it's just me that thinks this, but I don't know if others will admit it, but I don't trust the FBI. Because they've helped cover up things before in the past. And they're part of the government and everything that kept, helped keep UFOs and, JFK assassination is secret. They've helped Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy stuff a secret. They've had a hand keeping stuff a secret. They're part of the problem as the intelligence agencies and the defense contractors and stuff. I don't trust anything that they say. I don't.
And I hope so in the Amy Eskridge case that they also revisit the FBI investigation into her in 2022, because Amy said that she was speaking to the FBI for 3 months prior to her death in 2022, and then she was told by the FBI, and this is her words through me, saying she was told that the FBI don't have, quote, jurisdiction to investigate her case, which I find very, very worrying, because I had passed the FBI, I had passed this information to the FBI via a third party, precisely because I saw this as a big counterintelligence red flag, given who she was, given who her father is, and given what they were both working on at the Institute for Exotic Science.
What goes through your mind when you hear about another and another and another scientist missing or dead, this time from a boulder attack, the other because of
I guess the boulder just
a heart attack with no medical examiner's report? I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with Lou, and being an old counterintelligence guy myself, like he was, I relate 100% to what he's saying, and he was spot on about the vehicle as well, the lack of vehicular damage, and it's extremely concerning. As I say, it's a counterintelligence red flag, or red flags.
A lot of red flags.
Red flags in the plural.
Yeah.
Yes.
And finally, back to Lou Elizondo joining us, former U.S. Army Counterintelligence Special Agent, former Director, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The reason I keep reading out your qualifications and Frank's qualifications and everyone on the panel tonight is because you, many of you, have been given top clearances by the U.S. government, as have these victims.
Yeah.
They cannot be written off as crackpots the way that Ingrid was written off, the way that Amy is written off, trying to paint them as drug abusers. That did not happen. Matthew Sullivan did not have a drug problem, and he wasn't taking pills for child's bedwetting. I want to hear your thoughts, Lou.
Yep.
And I want to hear, you mentioned it, but you didn't go into it, about threats or harassment that you received.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct, Nancy. Myself and many of my colleagues have been subject to those harassment and threat campaigns. We've had our security clearances threatened. I hate to say it, but there's a reason why I live in the middle of nowhere with 5 German Shepherds and I'm heavily armed. The reality is that we've been told by several individuals, some of them law enforcement, some of them even members of Congress, who said, hey, look, they are very upset with what you guys are doing. And you're putting a mark on yourself. Fortunately, in my case, I think because I have enough public persona that maybe it's a little more difficult to just do something and make it look like an accident. But look, governments are fully capable of doing this, and this is not conspiracy. People say, well, our government wouldn't do that. Well, if that's the case, I would encourage anybody to look up the term MK Ultra, where the CIA had administered LSD to unsuspecting civilians, resulting in the death of at least one. Look at things like the Tuskegee experiment, where we allowed human beings to be infected with syphilis and allowed syphilis to go to its conclusion, which ultimately is death, even though we had the antibiotics to protect these individuals. Just in the name of science, we allowed these individuals to die. So there's a long list of things that we have done that have not been very good or kind to our citizens in the past. I hope it's not the case that they would still be doing that, but I also know from personal experience that they are very capable of doing it. Now, also one thing too you mentioned, very interesting, when we look at intelligence, and Frank will tell you the same thing, in counterintelligence specifically, there are things we call tradecraft. It's kind of tools of the trade, how we do business. Or how we ask others, like sources, to do business. And this one individual, we keep going back to that car with the alleged boulder that broke into the back of it. The individual was found with a burner phone, if I'm correct. And a burner phone is very interesting, because a burner phone is used when you want to communicate with somebody, but you want to do it in secret. You want to do it clandestinely, because a burner phone isn't necessarily assigned to you.
Yeah, and I heard the Taliban were using burner phones so they could be as easily identified as well. It is hard for us to locate where Osama was and certain parts of the Taliban and everything, but when we were trying, right after 9/11, we were trying to find these people in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places, and they used one of the key things that they always talked about was them using burner phones so they could be traced. Their throwaway phones, you use it, throw away, get another one, use it in secret, throw that away, get another one. You have a main one, you have burner phones, that you have secret and do other stuff. So
through one of the various carriers, a burner phone really doesn't have an identity. And so the question is, why was this top scientist carrying around with them a burner phone? Usually, again, burner phones are used to convey information that you don't want other people to know that you're conveying. Right. Was this person going to be another whistleblower potentially? Was this person having a conversation already, perhaps with somebody in our government, or perhaps maybe even a journalist, right? We simply don't know. But the fact that the person was never found, the car is in the condition that it's in, they were found with a burner phone.
To be fair, I believe it was a journalist, I think the journalist would have come out and said something, said, hey, this person was in touch with me. I think something bad happened to her. I don't think it was an invisible boulder, imaginary boulder, but
these are all things to me that raise my eyebrow, and I'm hopeful that the FBI will continue to track this down. I think there's enough information there. Look, there's enough. If somebody wants to disappear today's day and age, it's very difficult. There's something we call digital exhaust, and anytime you log on to anything, whether it's an email account or a bank account or hospital records, you leave a little bit of electronic exhaust in your wake, and that can be found. Trained professionals within the U.S. Marshal Service, within FBI, they know how to track down individuals. So the fact that a lot of these people remain missing, for me, is even greater concern. Because it's as if they just disappeared. There's no evidence, there's no trace left behind, other than stuff that is, quite frankly, rather suspicious. So I think we have a right to ask the questions that we're asking, and it may turn out that this list that you are compiling may be considerably larger, and I hope that's not the case. But it is quite possible that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and if that's the case, then we're going to have a much more difficult conversation amongst ourselves.
Speaking of the burner phone, Lou, it is reminiscent of the missing mom, Melissa Cassius, who takes her daughter a Subway sandwich for lunch, then disappears. She left on foot, no cell phone, no wallet, no purse, no keys. But when her items were searched. The cell phone, personal and work phone, had both been factory reset before she went on a walk. Interesting. She worked with Chavez at Los Alamos. Chavez also missing. Now we have Ingrid Lane turning up missing with a burner phone. Her car disabled by a boulder attack, which, based on your observations, clearly did not happen. If you know or think you know anything regarding our missing and dead, no medical examiner report for COD, please dial toll-free 800-CALL-FBI. That's 800-2...
I'd put more stock in telling the media, news organizations like News Nation or whatever, instead of going to them, say I heard this or whatever. I know about this because I know the FBI is covering up a lot of stuff with different cover-ups that are going on. I know they're part of the problem. That's just me. But anyways, I didn't mean to get so. I got pissed off earlier, triggered, because stuff affects me when people, talk about UFOs and they don't know what they're talking about. And like I said, I know that some of my, older girlfriends, like from the adult industry that I know of, say it's not really worth getting upset about or come back over to us or whatever. The thing is that they have been through what I have with this stuff with UFOs and secrecy and the BS of it, and how we were treated and everything. It's gonna piss people like me off about people talking stupid or whatever. And honestly, people are just telling me, hey, stop watching those guys then if they're getting that pissed off. And yeah, it's probably the best thing. Because I don't like being pissed off. I don't like it. Doesn't help me, buddy. It doesn't help me or anything. But I just get sick of people talking about it, about people like us, or saying this stuff is fake or diversion and it's not true, and they don't know what they're talking about, any of this stuff, and this has to do with our history, ETs, and it has a lot to do with our evolution, and if we get a big awakening and stuff like that, and go to the stars and telepathic and psychic abilities, a whole different world in everything. And for these guys, for one of them in particular, to say, astronauts, he goes, oh, it's all just diversion. And, I said astronauts have talked about seeing UFOs. Guys from the space shuttle, STS programs talked about it. It's been on film, UFOs on film. And, people just piss me off when they get stupid like that, and that's just me, and everything. But anyways, everybody take care. Good morning, good night, wherever you are. I might do some Michael Franzese on. He had somebody that knew about the guys in 9/11 there, and I'll have to do something on that. I don't know if I'll do it tonight. I would like to see some UFOs outside. I think I'll go out there for a little bit and stuff, because I see things out there, so I think I'll do that, and I might do that what they about 9/11, and they had evidence and knew stuff that's going to happen 9/11, and the FBI chose not to investigate thoroughly and go after Mom instead of the terrorists that caused 9/11. So that's something.